This was where the body of the legend was found. A man who will forever remain in the minds, thoughts, and history of Nigeria. The events of January 15, 1966 in Kaduna will forever remain fresh in the minds of the people of Nigeria, especially people of northern extraction. On that fateful night, the bomb blasted and shattered the house of the first and only Premier of northern Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sardaunan of Sokoto. Many of the residents and lovers of the Premier were far asleep. For those who were awake, it was thought to be a routine military night training. It all happened here at the Arewa House. Arewa House, adjacent to the famous Sultan Bello Mosque in Kaduna. It was the official residence of the Premier of northern Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sardaunan of Sokoto.
The political re-engineering of northern Nigeria has been nurtured here in these very premises we are here today, because this is where Sardaunan entirely spent his entire service, and he died in this particular premises. And therefore, it was only after 4 years with the death of the Premier that the then northern region considered expedient to transform this his official residence into a research center called Arewa House.
Sir Ahmadu Bello was a knight, a traditional title holder, and a statesman who led northern Nigeria before and during the early stages of Nigeria's independence. Sardaunan was the leader of the Northern Congress, the ruling party at the time, consisting majorly of the Hausa Fulani elite. He was also a legislator and later a government minister.
I think all the leaders at once see that the unity of the country is maintained, and therefore naturally you get the tail of every.
We Sardaunan became the leader of that Jam'iyyar Mutanen Arewa.
Indeed, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Premier of northern Nigeria, was a pace setter in almost all facets of modern development in the north.
Sardaunan began his career in this former Sokoto NA. Later on, he engaged into politics, and he was elected as member of the northern region, and later on he became the first Premier of northern region in 1954. And he continued to be the Premier of northern region from that particular period up to the time he was killed in a bloody coup in 15 January 1966. And therefore, he was the one who set the parameters, the pillars for the development of the entire northern region, be it economic, education, social aspect, and political development.
His foresight is one of his naturally endeared capabilities. His passion and patriotic zeal to northern Nigeria is second to none.
He was very honest, very upright, and not corrupt. He will tell members of cabinet as it is, as it were. So the problem we have now, our leaders lie, our leaders pack what belongs to so many people, millions of people, and keep for themselves and their children. This is just it. He was very honest, straightforward, not corrupt, and he gave his life to northern Nigeria. His motto was work and worship. That was all. That was all, nothing. I was talking to his private secretary, Hassan Lemu, of blessed memory. He said he knocked on his door at 3 a.m. at his bedroom. He met him treating files. If you take your file to the Premier's office, even comma, simple comma, if you did not put, he will make sure he puts it and corrects it. So he was a very dedicated person. And everybody from northern Nigeria was his. Angas, Tiv, Hausa Fulani, Kanuri, everybody from northern Nigeria. They were all his. He wasn't discriminated.
Ahmadu Bello realized that the North was a bit backward. Out of patriotic zeal, he tried to ensure that the North catch up. with the other region. So he came up with so many policies, including the northernization, policy, which was unpopular. Because according to the northernization policy, he ensured that in the northern public service, he ensured that only northerners were employed. And I think there is wisdom in this. As the premier of the North, presiding over the North, I think he has the responsibility to ensure that his people are adequately, represented in the government. More especially, in view of the fact that when you go to the other region, you will never see a northerner being employed in the services, in the public service of the other region.
In spite of his foresight, initiations and execution of programs and projects across the northern part of Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello was a victim of a coup d'etat. In the early hours of January 15, 1966, there was a military rebellion in Nigeria against the First Republic political leaders. Bloody assassinations of political leaders of northern and western extraction led by a group of young military majors.
My mother told me he went for lesser Hajj in Mecca. Before he left, he told her, she was the second daughter, he had only 2 children then. His third daughter was born after he has died. He said to her, Ai, she said, Ambaba, I got a letter, an anonymous letter, that they are going to kill me. If they kill you, it is destined to happen. He said, oh, I'm happy that you, a small girl, knows that. So he went for lesser Hajj. He came back, he was in Mecca for a couple of weeks. He returned to Kano. From Kano, he came to Kaduna.
All the masterminders of the 1966 coup were of the Eastern Nigeria origin. They include Major Patrick Chukwuma Kaduna Nzegu, Major Emmanuel Arinze Ifejuna, Major Timothy Onwatwegu, Major Chris Onuforo, Major Dan Okafor, and Major Humphrey Chukwuka.
The leader of the coup, Nzegu Kaduna, because he happened to be the chief instructor of the Nigerian military training center here in Kaduna. So prior to the coup, he has been conducting trainings in the night, maybe to prepare the mind of people. Because during the training, there were incidences whereby they are shooting and so on and so forth. So people just, when they had shot, they just take it for granted. So that's why even on the fateful day, 15th January 1966, when people had, many people didn't believe that there was a coup when they had gunshots, because they thought that it was just normal military reconnaissance and so on and so forth, until when later in the day it filtered that really there was a coup.
So they came. The young majors came to kill, to take over power and rule the country.
Actually, when Nzegu came, he surrounded the premises of this house where Ahmadu Bello lived. And they were shooting everywhere. In order to force Ahmadu Bello out of the bedroom, because he was sure that Ahmadu Bello was in. So they shelled the roof of his bedroom. It caught fire. That forced Ahmadu Bello to get out of it. After a lot of searches, they were able to find his whereabouts. Ahmadu Bello, together with his first wife and some of his servants around him, very protective of him.
What was evident before the ill-fated coup was that there was a rumor and even certainty that there was going to be a coup. Late Gidado Idris, who was a personal secretary to the premier, narrated how it was revealed to Sir Ahmadu Bello by the Premier of Western Nigeria, Samuel Akintola. Akintola said he had come to see the Premier and find out from him whether he was aware that the army would take over the government the following day. Sardauna said he had heard about it and had left everything in the hands of God.
Ran 15 ga watan Janairu, wanda mu a gurinmu irinmu da mu muka ragu yanzu, ta zama mana bakar Juma'a. Ranar ne su ci kuma suka yi shirin juyin mulki. Amma kafin su samu sa'an shirin juyin mulkin nan sun daɗe suna shiri, amma ba a fahimta ba. Don suka yi rangadi haka nan na sojoji da sauransu, kuma shi Sardauna ana gaya mishi sai ce a to ai aikin soja ne daman su za su shiga da aikinsu.
Ran da za a yi ko Akintola ya zo arewa ya samu Sardauna ya ce mishi to za a yi ga abin da ake kirsawa sauransu. Sardauna ya ce saboda mutane kaɗan ba zai tafi ban mutane shi ba a kashe su, shi ake nema, saboda haka ba inda zai tafi. A lokacin Akintola ya zo ne su gudu, ya ce shi bai tafiya ko ina, ya tsaya. Ya ɗauki Akintola, mahaifina ya tuƙa shi za su tafi iyafo su kai Akintola, iyafo da ya koma. Daidai wajen State House sai suka karo da Inzegu Kaduna, ana ce mishi ɗan Kaduna. Sai karo da shi a wajen sai ya ce a mahaifina, tsaya mu duba mu gani me Inzegu Kaduna ke yi a nan. Sai ya ce a'a suna rawan daji ne, noman rawan daji da suke. Suka tafi airport suka aji Akintola, ya tafi ya dawo, yana dawa daidai kusa da gidan shi Area House za a shiga, suka sake karo da su da sojoji. Ya tambaye su a'a nan Kaduna me ake yi? Sai ce har yanzu muna rawan daji ne. Ya ce to Allah ba da sa'a, ya shigo gida.
Akintola tried to persuade Sir Ahmadu Bello to move out of the country, at least to neighboring Niger Republic, where Akintola's good friend was the president. Ahmadu Bello rejected the idea, where he said, "I won't leave my people in their hour of need to run away and take shelter somewhere else."
On a Friday of that fateful day, Akintola flew from Lagos to come and tell him. He was at the airport waiting to receive Akintola, the Premier of Western Region. It was time to say Friday prayer, so Don wasn't joking with prayer. He left a couple Christian ministers to receive Akintola. He went for his prayer. After Jumaat prayer, he came back at the airport, they met. Akintola said to him, Sardaunan, Prince, he calls him Prince, we are going to die today. There's going to be a coup today. So let us go to Niger Republic where your friend is, the president. He said, Prince, have you forgotten my great-grandparents who are warriors? He said, okay, if we run away, tell me if there's any way you can run away from death. Go back and believe in God. If it is destined for us to die, we will die. Nobody will stop us.
Ali Sarkin Mota was a personal driver to Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Premier of Northern Nigeria. He lived close to the Premier as one of his aides. In one of his past interviews, he narrated how Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeku and his men invaded the residence of the Premier on that fateful night. Unknown to me, the soldiers had killed the policemen maintaining security in the house.
Cikin dare daren Juma'a sai suka zo nan gidan Sardauna. Sojoji aka zazzage, ana tsammanin ainihin ran dajin da suke yi ne, ashe ba haka bane. Suka zo suka samu mahaifina yana wanke moto, Alhaji Ali Sarkin Moto yana wanke moto wajen karfe 1 da wani abu na dare. Sai suka ce mishi ina Sardauna yake, wai as premier, sai ce musu bai jin turanci. ina Sardauna yake ce rabai Sardauna tun yamma da suka gama aiki. To sai ya tsammanin baki ne, ya je dan samu musu dan fura da dan kilishi haka ya kawo musu ya basu. Shi sai suka ce daina wankin motar nan.
Sarkin Mota maintained that the coup plotters went to the premier's wife's quarters and chased them out of their rooms. As soon as the premier's wives joined my wife in our quarters, soldiers began shooting.
Suka shiga gidan Sardauna suka so mu bincike suna buɗe wuta, suna harbi gabaki ɗaya wajen filin pipes duk sun zaga gidan ana yi. To can Sardauna mata suka zo suka ɓoye shi ba a gan shi ba, sai aka kashe matan shi uwar gidan shi gogo. Ana kashewa ya ta yi salati sai ce ana where is premier, yana wa yake neman Sardauna, ga Sardauna nan. Yana tasowa sai suka harbe shi a goshi sai ya salati sai ya faɗi.
Ƙarfe 6 da wani abu muka je muka samu gawan Sardauna da na matar shi uwar gidan, don ita ta riƙe shi ne cewar ba za ta ga gawan shi ba, shi ne suka harbe ta, ta mutu suka janye ta sannan suka harbe shi. Yana ma salati ne daga cikin bakin suka harbe shi da bindiga.
Rather something like the longest day. We started this off on the night of the 13th of January when a night exercise was planned by the military college which I command. We took out troops to the ground and taught them how to do night attacks. We didn't tell them what we were planning for, but at the end of the exercise we took them out and showed them various places where they were to stand and just remain in the vehicle. Next day we went out again for the same type of exercise, and at the end we issued them with ammunition, this time live ammunition, and told them that they were going back to the same place as they went yesterday, but this time they were to get certain people.
And they were with you, were they?
Oh, of course they did. Oh, they all supported us.
Did the Sardaunan himself attempt to fight?
Well, no. We didn't see him until the time we actually shot him. He ran away from his house when we fired the first few shots of anti-tank gun into the building. The whole roof was blown up and the place was set alight. Then we went to the rear of the house and started searching from room to room until we found him amongst the women and children.
Have you ever pondered or wondered why and how Kaduna appeared in the name of Chukwuma Nzegu?
He was born here, to the extent that even if you didn't use Kaduna, many people will not recognize him. But the moment you say Kaduna, it became a nickname, for him. So that's why that Kaduna is added to his name.
Nzegu was born in the northern region's capital of Kaduna to Igbo immigrant parents from Midwestern region. Such was his family's affinity to the city of Kaduna, where he was born. When not in his military uniform, he wore northern mufti and frequently referred to himself as the Northerner. Nzegu spoke fluent Hausa. In fact, Nzegu's command of Hausa was better than his command of Igbo. Therefore, many of the Northerners around him trusted and saw him as a brother.
Nzegu, he was brought up in Kaduna by Sardaunan himself. He was with Sardaunan for quite a long time. He stays in Kaduna, he was brought up in Kaduna, his education, everything in Kaduna here. And that was the reason why Sardaunan added this name, Nzegu Kaduna, for him. So, but he later came and killed him. So he knows Sardaunan very well. You understand? And that was the reason why people were surprised that Nzegu Kaduna, he was among those he was among the military officers who were very close to Sardaunan, who were assisting Sardaunan in one way or the other, who were protecting the interests of the nation at that time. And it was the same person that now came and took over power by killing Sardaunan himself.
There were different reports as to why the plotters embarked on the coup d'etat. One of such was allegations of corruption.
The coup plotters, they assume Sardaunan, they have accumulated a lot of resources and have a very part bank account. Unfortunately for them, they discover that they have nothing in their bank account. Indeed, they have been highly disappointed.
Kudin da suka yi su suna ganin kamar Sardaunan ya kawo wani abu ne ga arewa, kamar ya kwashi kudin arewa, kudin kasan ne ga baki daya, yana azurta kanshi ko yana azurta ya uwar shi. Sai da suka kai Sardaunan suka gane Sardaunan bai da komai, rigan ma da zai sa wani lokaci zai iya kwana ba rigan da zai sa washe gari, sai dai ya fi da mayafi. Akwai tela shi bature tela, yana Zamfara ne, akwai ayyan shi masana na a Kaduna. Sai ya kira bature ya ce mishi zo ya dinka mishi riga gobe ita zai sa, ya dinka rigan da zai sa bai da shi, ya ba da su kyauta.
Indeed, corruption was not the case as alluded to by late Gidado Idris, who was the personal secretary to the premier. Gidado narrated that on the evening before the tragedy, on 14th of January 1966 at about 8 p.m., the late premier called me and said he wanted to know the extent of his indebtedness to shops where we used to collect things like Kingsway, Johnson's and the rest. How can a corrupt leader be indebted to provision stores? How can a politician of high caliber and position of authority like the premier not own a house anywhere in Nigeria except a mud house in Raba, his hometown?
Ya rasu bai da gida ko ɗaya a nan Kaduna, sai gidan shi da Sokoto, sai na Raba. Lokacin da aka gina state house aka ce shiga, ce shi ba zai shiga wannan gidan, yana tsoron Allah ba zai shiga ba, ya koma office. Dan state house an gina ne saboda gidan shi da, ya ce ba zai shiga wannan gidan ba. Moto wannan ta shiga kwaya ɗaya nashi, banta da gwamnati bai da ita.
Nigeria's Prime Minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, was killed. The Premier of Northern Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello, was killed. The Premier of Western Nigeria, Samuel Akintola, was killed. Federal Minister Chief Festus Okoti Igbo was also killed. Apart from that, the coup plotters also murdered some of the finest military officers.
The coup, it was highly one-sided because it was only the northern major political leaders of the north and some and the southwest they were being eliminated. Entirely the eastern region, nobody among the political leaders were killed. You know that it only affected the premier of northern region and the premier of western region. And by then there was a strong alliance between Akintola and Sardaunan.
The substantive president Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was of the eastern origin, had left the country in late 1965, first for Europe, then on a health vacation to the Caribbean. Sir Ahmadu Bello, the first and only premier of northern Nigeria and a chieftain from the Sokoto Caliphate, will remain forever green in the hearts of many northerners. He touched all facets of development in the north. Education was one area the premier gave priority to during his lifetime, ensuring that apart from the traditional Quranic education, that secular education was also given the importance it deserved.
Indeed, by the time once Sardaunan became the premier of northern region, we have only two secondary schools in the entire northern region. The only Bariwa College Zaria and Government College Kaifi. But before he left, he was killed. Indeed, he was able to establish secondary school in the entire provinces of the northern region. Therefore, it's one of the major landmarks he has established or he has achieved, that is education development of northern region. He was the one who established the famous Ahmadu Bello University, who now became the famous university in the entire West African sub-region. And he was also the one who established the Kaduna Polytechnic, and he has established so many other craft schools, particularly to usher in the development of the northern region. You can see also his own economic development, particularly he was the one who initiated the famous NNDC, which was one of the major conglomerates that actually promoted economic development in the entire northern region.
Economic development of the North is one area where the Premier excelled, initiating and creating institutions and industries that have endured far after he was gone. The New Nigerian Development Company (NNDC) and the Northern Nigeria Investments Limited and the Bank of the North were geared to ginger the speedy development of the North.
Emir of Daura, Bashar, was telling me of blessed memory when he was the minister. They went on a boat to Kainji for they were in that boat for over 1.5 hours with some white men. He was trying to establish a port in Lokoja, and Emir of Daura was the Minister of Economic Development. So they went together to do it. You can imagine what their plans, what their strategy was 60 years ago. But up till now, we have not achieved. The port has not been achieved yet. They started it. When you look at their rolling plants, their plants they had, everything was captured. Everything. As at 60 years ago, they were planning to establish a port in Lokoja.
New Nigerian newspaper and the Hausa version of Gaskiya Tafi Kwabo, the radio television Kaduna, were all created to inform and sensitize the northern populace, at least to keep pace with what is happening in the government and other regions. Textile and ginnery companies were brought on board to harness and process cotton and skin that abound in the north. Therefore, Arewa Textile, Zazzau Ginnery, Gusau Ginnery and many other manufacturing companies were established.
Despite the very limited resources it is on disposal, but he was able to actually put in place so many industries across the length and breadth of the northern region. Indeed, that is why some people consider him as one of the major gladiators of the northern and Nigerian politics, because of his foresight, his vision, his mission to ensure that he repositioned the northern region at a particular period so that it can compete more favorably with the other part of the country.
In all sincerity, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Premier of Northern Nigeria, was able to do his part in establishing the Northern Nigeria, initiated and executed many programs and projects that have endured till date. His lifetime and death will continue to linger on as far